Hello guys, we're going to be talking about great circles and in aviation as well as in geometry. So in geometry we do have, and I can't deny that fact, that in geometry when calculating distance on a sphere you must use a great circle. So what's a great circle? A great circle is connecting 2 points on a sphere by imagining that you're going through the sphere and not on top of it. And I'm going to illustrate that in a little while. Let's look at this picture right here. So this is the great circle route on a sphere. Now, as I said, I don't have any problem with this because on a sphere, this is logical, this is a fact. The problem that I have is that they apply this idea on this. So they say that Earth is a ball because on a sphere, on a equation, in math, on this equation, that's how it works. But in reality, we observe something totally different. For this reason, I would say if the facts don't fit the theory, drop the theory. We should drop this theory that the Earth is a ball because the facts don't fit into this theory. We observe a flat horizon no matter how high you go, and there is no motion of the Earth. Now what globe believers or globe defenders came up with is this. This is a quote by Albert Einstein: "If the facts don't fit the theory, change the facts." This is absurd, right? So in order to make the facts to fit into their theory that the Earth is a ball, they came up with fisheye lens where they bend the horizon. And that's the way they use trickery to support their theory that the Earth is a ball, the Earth is a sphere. As you see in this image right here, the fisheye lens not only bends the horizon, it bends even the rope close to the lens that's supposed to be a straight rope right here, cord, but it bends everything, and even here you can see how the horizon is bent due to the fact that they are using fisheye lenses. Now again, in order for them to fit their theory into the idea that the Earth is a ball, they have to change the facts. This is crazy. This is not how things really should go. If the facts don't fit the theory, we should drop the theory because facts are facts. So the idea is that we should completely abandon the idea that the Earth is a ball just because you can perform some magic, math numbers and equations and get the results on a sphere. We should not bend the truth to make the facts that the Earth is flat into a ball. But let's look at this in more detail. First of all, I want you guys to watch this short video about Uri Geller. Uri Geller was really famous when I was a kid. Lots of people talked about him. So let's watch this video. It will be very useful for the conclusion of this video.
Look, you see it's beginning.
Oh my God! Quite unbelievable.
See, it's bending upwards.
At a restaurant table, Geller bent a spoon a little, and then the other diners started to take an interest.
I didn't come to do a show here, but I'm doing it with my mind.
It clearly seems to me as though he bent the spoon as he was standing up.
Yes, of course. Yes.
Then he walked over to one of the other diners and handed the spoon to her. And it's clear that the spoon is bent a lot more when it leaves his hand than when it went into his hands.
He took the spoon and then said, well, I need to be near something metal. And he stepped to one side. And as he stepped over, he sort of pushed in and down. And then he turned the spoon and hid the bend behind his hand and then began to rub the spoon and made it appear that it was then bending. And I was very startled and in a way shocked, and I was thinking, what? I mean, this was his house in front of his family, and you don't go into another man's house and call him a liar in front of his own wife and children.
To illustrate better what I have to say, let's use this silver sphere right here. I'm gonna make 2 dots here. We got here 2 dots, 2 points in this sphere. Now, first let me explain. So the idea is that on a sphere, you cannot draw a straight line connecting this black dot to this one. The idea is that the line should go through the sphere, like going on the inside. It's not on top of it. So for this reason, they draw a line that goes, the line arcs like this. So let me do it for you. Okay, this is the idea, that when connecting those 2 dots together on a sphere, we should not draw a straight line, but go around as if the line is going through the ball or around the highest point here of this sphere. Okay, so this is the idea. Now, you must agree with me that it would not make any difference if I turn this ball to in other directions. So let me explain what I mean right now. Here we have this line, a great circle connecting these 2 dots on this sphere. But let's say that I decide to turn this 90 degrees, let's say if I can do it through here. The distance between those 2 dots, did it change because I turned the ball to this way? No, it didn't, right? What if I just keep on turning this ball like this? Did the distance change? I'm just having this discussion right now on Facebook, on YouTube. Someone who learned, Japanese guy who said he learned in primary school that the arc, when drawn north, is shorter than drawn south. So what's the difference? I haven't done anything to this line. I'm just turning the image upside down. Did the distance change or the size of the arc change? Of course not. This is an absurd. So there are more notations that we can do. What if I flip this image like this? Did it change? No. Okay, did it change? Of course not. The size of the line is still the same. It hasn't changed anything. It's still in a sphere. The 3 dots are connected by a great circle, but this time it's now arcing south. Or I can go ahead and rotate the image again and have it arcing north. So it doesn't really matter the way I flip this image. It's still the size of the line is still the same. So it doesn't really make sense. Now what happens is, aviation, they say that the lines can only arc north. And that's why things really go strange. Still, let me make an arbitrary change here. Let's do it like this. We transform. Okay, now we have something different. North to south. Okay, here's our sphere again. And you see the image there. It's still the same concept, the same geometry, calculation, the same math. It's the same thing. I'm just switching the ball, the sphere, rotating this arbitrarily, like I'm doing the way I want. It doesn't change. The equation or the size of the line is still the same. I'm not extending the line because I'm flipping the image, so it should all be okay, right? Well, not so much when you're dealing with Earth. Now, why is it different? Because Earth is not a globe. You cannot do this on Earth for real. So let's now compare this with the flat Earth. I'm going to try to illustrate what I want to say. I'm going to draw some names here. Let's name this dot Okay, let's name this first dot Singapore. And let's name the second one Quito in Ecuador. Okay, both are exactly located at the equator. Now my ball is not really, let me fix a little bit here so there'll be no, it should be something like this. Okay, now so this is about right. You have the equator going this way. Let's fill this with some color. Okay, so that's the equator. We have Singapore and Quito. Alright, so this is a great circle connecting these two dots right here. Right? So most people will say this is okay, this is how it happens in real life. Right? But if I flip this and I will do it, okay, now look at this, and let me write other name here. Let me write Falklands, and this one here in Canada. Now this great circle does not apply anymore because from Halifax to Falklands it's right on the 60th parallel, and the flight from Halifax to Falklands flies straight. It doesn't really circle either way, either right or left. It goes straight. See how things change? Because Earth is not a globe, and I will explain exactly what I mean. So this image I got from a aviation website. Someone asked them to draw a line, a great circle route between Singapore and Quito on the equator. And the people there, they run the site, the website, or the pilots, they came up with this here, demonstrating that you could either fly north, arc north or south from Singapore to Quito. But as I went to the Great Circle Map website where you calculate the Great Circle routes by airplane between these two cities, they only give you one option. And this one gives you way north of Hawaii. While Google Maps give us the same Great Circle route going above north, arcing north of the equator, but somehow flying south of Hawaii, while this one shows going way north. But one thing is for sure, this line down here, it cannot be executed. They can make a drawing on a cartoon CGI map, ball, sphere, but in reality, this flight could never be executed like this arcing south. This is the reason why, especially the Great Circle Mapper gave us a route going way above Hawaii. Singapore right here and Quito or Quito. Okay, this is the line that would take it to fly from this city to Quito, Ecuador. Both stand right on the equator. This grayish blackish line here is the equator. Since they cannot fly a route that would take like if the great route circle route was correct, that they could fly both either going arcing north or south of the equator, that would mean that an airplane would fly an even greater distance connecting these two cities than possible. Make a little bit smaller. So that would mean that the airplane would have to fly even a greater circle if it was possible to fly south of the equator. But it's not possible. It's only possible this way because the Earth is not a globe. So I will be looking at more cities, but pay attention. This is the reason that Great Circle route go way above Hawaii, because that's the only way these two cities could be connected. Remember, when they say that arcs must arc north above the equator, it's because they are drawing shortcuts between parallel lines. For example, from going to this point here to this point here, it's a straight line. It's a shortcut instead of going around the Tropic of Cancer right here. So we're going to be looking at some more cities, and I will explain why these whole great circle routes are just a greater hoax. Okay guys, just want to make this point one more time before we move on to our next flight. Here's Quito, Ecuador, and Singapore. This is the Great Circle Route flying between these 2 points. This is the equator. So on the Great Circle route, the rule is that you have to arc. Instead of flying straight, you fly around the highest point right here. So we go ahead and compare, since Earth is a sphere, as the NASA lady tells us.
Is a sphere. So people have known that the Earth is spherical for thousands of years. We really need to put this question to bed because we've known the Earth is a sphere for a long time.
So since Earth is a complete sphere, there are 2 spheres right here, one side by side to the other, same size. So what I did, I just picked that Great Circle Route and copy it to this sphere right here. So both are correct according to the Great Circle Map website. This is a Great Circle Route between this point. This is a Great Circle Route between this point and this point. Now, we turn this sphere to the side, it's still the same Great Circle Route here. It doesn't change a thing, because a sphere, you must calculate the Great Circle Route going around. But it doesn't happen, this doesn't happen on Earth anymore. The flight east to west or west to east still has to follow the line of a great circle. But when flying north to south on longitude lines, those flights fly straight, and this is the great giveaway right here. This demonstrates the Earth cannot be a sphere because the rule no longer applies when flying from north to south. And this is the explanation right here. When flying from east to the west or west to east, what they call as a great circle is really a shortcut between the latitude lines. Latitude lines are circuits around the flat Earth, and the shortest path between 2 points on a flat stationary Earth is a straight line, and that's what they do. They call it a great circle right here, but in fact they are just going straight on a flat stationary Earth, and those are this red line is the equator, and now the parallel lines, the latitude lines, goes as a circuit, and they fly straight. And when flying along longitudinal lines, they have to fly straight, no other way. That's why you cannot do this on Earth when flying from north to south or south to north. You can only fly straight. There's no greater circle here. That alone tells you Earth cannot be a sphere. Earth cannot be a globe. Earth is not a globe. Okay, let's move on to our next flight. Let's look now to other cities, Quito and Nairobi. We just saw that on the Aviation website, they drew a line coming from connecting these 2 cities, Singapore to Quito, and they drew going both ways, either arcing north or arcing south. And we also saw that the Great Circle Map and this website gives us a more accurate line going way north of Hawaii, as we compared on the flat Earth map how it has to go really way north of Hawaii. But let's also look at this city, both city, Quito, connecting Quito to Nairobi. Now Nairobi is like only 4 degrees south of the equator, so still, you still have to land there. So Google Maps gives us this interesting Great Circle Route arcing north here, whereas the Great Circle Map does not. It just gives us a straight line, contradicting what we just saw right here. They gave us a Great Circle route connecting Singapore to Quito, but it gives us a straight line from Quito to Nairobi. Whereas in Google they gave us both cities Great Circle routes, although Quito to Nairobi is not as arced like the other one, but it's still an arc. Right? This is kind of weird right here. But again, you would never see, although they posted here, connecting Singapore to Quito, this line arcing south. In real life, it cannot be so. When we look at the flat Earth map, we understand why. Here's Nairobi, Kenya. This gray line here is the equator. Right here, equator, 0 degrees, and Quito. That's what they call Great Circle route. It's a straight line connecting these two cities. Anything flying from this point to this point other than this, it would make them spend more time and more money, especially if they had to arc south of the equator. Because the Earth is not a globe, it cannot be done. And we will see that happening constantly. So one thing that I want you to pay close attention here is this thing here. Great circles has to arc north, following the inner side of parallel lines. Understand? You gotta follow this inner side. From the equator, actually even at a greater parallel lines, latitude lines. It has always to cut through the inner side. It's like a shortcut. And we're going to be looking at more here. That's why I have this one here connecting New York to Hawaii. It goes on the inner side of the parallel lines. Always has to go like that. Because anything other than that would result on a greater distance. Anything can only follow the inner side of the parallel lines, or what they say arc north, can never arc south. Even though on a sphere, as we demonstrated before, it wouldn't mind if we flip the image up or down, right or left. The line, the arc would still be the same. And this is how this flight from Quito to Ecuador works on the flat Earth map. If this plane was to fly straight line, if it was possible for this flight to fly from Quito to Nairobi, a straight flight, that's exactly the route of this plane, the path of this plane on the inner side of the equator. Has to go always on the inner side of the equator. Always always the shortest distance between point A and B on a flat plane, flat Earth. It's always a straight line. So this is how this flight would work. Let's now look from another perspective. This is how it is. The plane takes off and flies straight to Nairobi. That's how it is. No secrets. Always on the inner side of the latitude lines. That's how it has got to be. No other way. Any other way, if Earth were a ball, it wouldn't matter. But as Earth is not a ball, if this plane flies south of the equator, that would result on a greater distance. And it always has to go the shortest distance between 2 points on a flat stationary Earth. So this is how this flight would have to fly. But since there is no straight flight from Nairobi to Quito or Quito to Nairobi, they have to fly like this. So since there is no straight flight, direct flight from Quito to Nairobi, Kenya, there are only two options. They have to fly from Quito to Amsterdam by KLM, from Amsterdam to Nairobi, Kenya. Or they fly Quito, Paris. From Paris, they fly to Nairobi. That's the only way they can do it. So everything makes more sense on the flat Earth map. It makes no sense at all on the globe. There is actually a flight connecting Quito to Nairobi. It's not a direct flight. There are two flights. You fly from Quito to Amsterdam, from Amsterdam to Nairobi by KLM, or you can fly from Quito to France, Paris, and France, Paris to Nairobi. Okay, so this is how this flight looks like when looking at the globe on both models, the circle map, Great Circle Map, or on Google Maps. But once you look at the flat Earth map, you see which one makes more sense. Okay, both Amsterdam, Paris, right here in Europe, Nairobi, Quito. That's how they fly, always the inner side of the parallel lines. That's the way it has to go because the Earth is not a globe. It has to fly this way. Any other way, south of the equator, would result on a longer distance. And remember, the Great Circle routes they call, it's only and always flying straight path within the inner circles of the latitude lines. That's what it is. No secret. From point A to point B, they calculate inside this area, and that's how they calculate what they call great circles. But it's always a straight line on the inner side of the parallel lines, or the latitude lines. Just as we saw in this example right here, flowing from Quito, straight direct flights from Quito to Nairobi. Always straight line on the inner side of the latitude lines. Always. That's the secret of the Great Circle. Okay, there's no other explanation. This is the secret right here. They fly straight within these latitude lines. Always. So you guys remember when I flipped this ball, Halifax, Canada to Falklands, and the Great Circle route should still work because it's still a sphere. Just because I switch its sides, and I will do it again, just as an illustration, okay? It doesn't change anything, okay? Let's say connect that Quito or Singapore here and Quito. This is the line, or if I go right to left, it won't change because it's a sphere and the math should work for the sphere. But it doesn't work on Earth because Earth is not a sphere. That's why when we start plugging names in these points, things get really weird. Here's the map of Halifax and Falklands. Okay, this is on Google, both Google Satellite and Google Maps. This is the straight line connecting both cities. And this is on the Great Circle map, another straight line right there, and on the Mercator. Now, where are the Great Circle route? Nowhere to be found. When we look at the flat Earth map, you understand why. I picked these two cities because they are right at the 60th parallel, longitude 60 west. That's why I picked these two cities right there. Flights going along the longitude lines, they always go straight. It has to go straight because the Earth is flat. It has to go straight. There's no other way in all the other lines. Anywhere you fly on the flat Earth, following the longitude lines, you're gonna fly straight. Whereas when flying from east to west or west to east, you always have to cut through, get a shortcut in between the parallel lines. That's how it is. And this is what they call a great circle. But this is the reason why you won't see an arcing going to one direction here, right or left, because Earth is not a ball. And when you get to long areas of longitude, they have to fly straight. For some of you who have been following my channel for the past 4 years, you know that in the past, about 2 years ago, I made a couple of videos and I did some programming before, and I explained how it's possible to convert flat Earth data to globe data. Input flat Earth data, output globe Earth data. It's all done on the computer. But I didn't know there was a name for that. Just recently, Taboo Conspiracy 2, he received an email from a Kansas whistleblower where he named the program. He named the program as cryptic flight sequentials. So it's not nothing new to me. I have heard before, I just didn't know there was a name. So I'm going to go ahead and play his, I credit to Taboo Conspiracy too, of course. Please subscribe to his channel. But I'm going to play here now the whistleblower explaining how things work. And it's exactly what I've been saying all along, that north to south flights fly straight from east to west. They gotta go through the latitude lines, shortcuts, what they call great circles. So let's listen to this email.
I have been a quiet follower of your channel and have seen the drama over your recent video. Let me tell you about myself. I joined the Royal Australian Air Force in 1987 and flew transport aircraft, Hercules C-130H, for 6 years. After this, I joined Qantas and was the second officer on the 747-400, being promoted to first officer in 1999. Unfortunately, I lost my aircrew medical status due to early onset diabetes. I was then offered a position in the flight planning department. This is when my life changed. We were responsible for producing the flight plans for the entire airline network. The program we use for flight planning uses algorithms called cryptactic flight sequentials. And it was clear these were converting plane geometry to make it appear as if the coordinates were on a globe. When I questioned my coworkers, the answer I received repeatedly was, "Don't ask, just approve the plan." I knew something was not right, but who was I to question Qantas flight planning? So I did my job and never asked again. The best I understand is that KLS algorithm applies a scaling factor to distances based on the direction and proximity to the equator. Taken from the UTM grid, which is rectangular for a flat plane, the adjustment will generate a course and a distance that makes it appear to be produced for a globe. The UTM is the Universal Transverse Mercator Grid, which is used by the military. As an example, flying from point A to point B might be 500 kilometers, but for a globe, that distance needs to be 450 kilometers. If going east or west, the distance is computed and adjusted based on the latitude. When flying north or south, the distances don't require this adjustment. And any direction in between needs a factored scaling. This produces a flight plan that would convince anyone it was based on a globe. Pilots never verify it. They just accept the numbers, and the autopilot flies accordingly. I was guilty of that too. I never questioned my flight plans, as I figured the computer knows what it is doing. When I was on the 130, we had a full-time navigator who did all the work. We just entered the course corrections he provided. The 130 is the Hercules C-130, a military transport aircraft. This is what I flew with the 36th Squadron. I was captain for 4 years and held flight lieutenant rank on discharge. I held an airline transport pilot license when working with Qantas. I did no other commercial flying except for Qantas. I joined Qantas at the end of 1994 and 5 years later attained first officer rank. That is normal for the promotion rate at the time. I was in the flight planning department, which is part of Qantas operations. We were located at the jet base at Kingsford Smith Airport. I don't know if I would call myself a flat earther just yet, but I believe it could be flat. My opinion of the flat earth is that there are a lot of people searching for the truth right now, just as I am. The pieces of the puzzle are coming together, even though there is some incorrect information being presented too, which makes it easy for people to dismiss it. The KLS math does make flat look like a globe, so that is strong evidence to me it is not a globe. In May this year, I was laid off due to the cutbacks from the alleged virus. Contrary to being disappointed, I feel this has set me free. I have no reason not to talk about it. The cryptactic flight sequentials are the key. I cannot find anything about them doing independent research, but this is what they were called within the Qantas flight planning department. I no longer have access to the flight planning systems, but can tell you more about the algorithms. I had to sign a non-disclosure confidentiality agreement, so I don't want to be identified. I hope you understand.
To elaborate a little bit on that, here's the Gleason's map, the flat earth map, with planes flying from the North Pole, from the center point, to all directions following the longitudinal lines. They all fly straight, as we see this little one right here flying. They all fly straight when flying over the longitudinal lines in all directions, just going south or heading back north. Let's look a little bit closer. Is the 9-degree north point, and plane flying south goes straight to over the longitudinal line, in this case here 150 degrees west, and now they all fly straight following the longitudinal lines. They have to cut through the latitude lines right here because the latitude lines go around, so they cut through, and this is what they call a great circle. But in fact, they're just flying straight on the flat earth, cutting through the latitudinal lines. Are not difficult to understand. Flights from going south of the equator, most of the time they fly on the jet stream. So this is the secret of the great circles. And there is more. For example, let me turn this map here, flip. It's another flight I cover in my book towards the end. It was a flight from Doha to Bali. It made an emergency landing right here in Chennai, India. Qatar Airways flight QR972, Doha to Bali emergency landing in Chennai, India in 2017. You can understand why. It always goes on the inner side of the parallel lines or the latitude lines. That's how it has to fly, always. And same thing here. Let me flip the image. Nairobi. Here we have the flights from New York to Hawaii. That's why they always land in this area here, emergency landing. And remember, the greatest circles that has to arc north following the inner side of parallel lines has nothing to do with the Earth being a ball. It has to do with flying on the inner side of the parallel lines. That's the shortcut. This is the shortest distance. Remember, the shortest distance on a flat plane is always a straight line. That's why those flights go straight here, or as straight as they can, not when they don't have to dodge, like, get out of the way of storms or bad weather. But 90% of the time they will fly straight because that's the shortest distance between 2 points on a flat earth. So this is what a great circle really is. Let's look at some other routes here. Again, using the Great Circle Map website, Great Circle Map. Let's look at these flights here. Cover them on a time. I cover these flights a lot. New York to Honolulu. So this is what they call the Great Circle route going from New York to Honolulu. But if you remember, we talked about this before. On a sphere, it really wouldn't matter whether this arcs north or south, because the distance of this arc is the same. But in real life, this arc here going south could never happen. And you know the answer for this. It's because it always has to fly on the inner side of the latitude line. That's how it goes. Even though Hawaiian Airlines channel YouTube does have a video of a flight from New York to Honolulu arcing south, it does not really happen like that. No pilot would agree with this. For some reason, the graphic designers, the mathematicians that made this video for them, did calculate a great circle, but arcing south, they just treated the Earth like a ball. But because Earth is not a ball, it cannot be done. If Earth were a ball, it would be okay for this arc south. But since Earth is not a ball, it cannot be done whatsoever. It can only arc north, because again, as we have seen, path of this flight has to go along the inner side of the parallel, the latitude line. That's why it has always arc north, as they say, but really flies along the inner side of the latitude lines. I want to credit this video to Immune to BS. He pointed that out in his website a couple of years ago. And this is what I've been telling about flights going from north to south. They fly straight on the flat Earth map. So this is the azimuthal equidistant projection. Also, we know this projection is the flat Earth map. You see below the symbol of the United Nations. And here, there is the definition of this azimuthal equidistance projection map. The azimuthal equidistant projection is an azimuthal map projection. It has the useful properties that all points on the map are at proportionately correct distance from the center point, and that all points on the map are at the correct azimuth or direction from the center point. And down below here we have some more explanation about distances and directions to all places are true only from the center points of projection. Distances are correct between points along straight lines through the center. All other distances are incorrect. Distortion of areas and shapes increases with distance from the center point. All the longitudinal lines are equal distance from the center point, and that's where the airplanes fly straight. Latitude lines are not equal distance from center point, but the equator is equal distance to the longitudinal lines. So they show you this, the globe spinning ball in space, but they measure this, the flat Earth. So all the conversions which we'll be talking about are based from the flat Earth map to the globe Earth. The flat Earth map came first. The azimuthal equidistance map is the way the world is. Wake up. During the Second World War, you see lots of flat Earth map coming to light, being published, because they could not count on the globe or the Mercator.
Everything started to change in the mid-20th century. There was a world war, and more airplanes were being used than ever before. Editorials published in the New York Times in the 40s called for the Mercator to be discarded and reminded readers the grossness of its errors should not be forgotten. In a series of orthographic maps in 1942 and 43, Fortune magazine declared the Mercator is no map for global war, and it was a dangerous map to use in studying global strategy. An expose on cartography Life published around the same time called the Mercator a mental hazard in a war that is plotted on great circles across the land and sea and through the air.
There are several versions of it, and you see pictures, even Hitler, next to flat Earth map, and I'm going to be displaying here, and as you see here displayed, some of the ones came up during the Second World War. Because Earth is not a globe, they could not rely on a globe projection or a Mercator projection, and so many problems they had, so that's why they came up with the flat Earth map during the World War II. So I do sometimes exchange some messages with Wolfie 6020, and I don't understand much about these guys who claim to be smart, but at the same time they ignore data coming from those universities. There are many reports saying that not only Kansas is the flattest US state, but the whole southeast region of the United States is flat. The total from Florida to Kansas, it's all flat land. So I did ask him what would he do if he had to fly from Florida, from Miami to Kansas. Would he crash the plane? Because he says that flight plans can only be made on a sphere. And I asked him, what would you do if you're flying and then you come to face some flat region on Earth, like, from flying from Miami to Kansas? He said he would still calculate a great circle route. Let me explain why. Here we have Wolfie's flight plan from Miami to Kansas City as a great circle route. Wolfie could only fly like this. He could not fly like this. And see what I'm trying to say here? If Earth were truly a sphere, it would make no difference for great circles to arc north or south, as we have demonstrated before. But because Earth is not a sphere, it can only arc north. And this is the reason. Okay, we have Miami, we have Kansas right here, Kansas City. He always has to fly on the inner side of the latitude lines. And this is the Tropic of Cancer. And of course, we have more latitude lines here. So he has to cut through them, making a shortcut on the inner side only. That's his so-called Great Circle. It's nothing more than what we've been trying to say so far, with all these lines going to the inner side of the latitude lines. So this is what they call Great Circle. When you look at the fact that there is no curvature and no motion of the Earth, and that's what it is right here. Parallel lines, the latitude lines, and they cut through them on the inner side. This is another flight path from Los Angeles to Madrid. On the globe, they show here again the arc going arcing north. And we know this is only possible because the Earth is flat. And this is how it really looks like on the flat Earth map. It's a shortcut going through the inner side of the latitude line. It's always like this. Those arcs cannot arc south because it always mean that if arced south would be a greater distance flying from point A to B. So it has to fly straight, which on the globe can only arc north, cannot arc south. If Earth were a ball, it would be okay. You go either way. But because Earth is not a ball, it's not a sphere, these flight paths can only arc north. What I mean is that go through the inner side of the latitude lines towards the North Pole or Center Pole. This is just another example out of many. Los Angeles to Madrid, this is the flight path. Has to go this way. Now, all these great circle calculations is only possible if Earth is truly a sphere. All those flight paths, calculations, the distance, everything that's calculated, it means that Earth can only be a sphere, as we see here. If Earth were of any other shape, those calculations and flight routes would not work, right? But that is that we must believe that after the Big Bang caused Earth to be a sphere. But I'm yet to see an explosion, I'm yet to see rocks exploding and becoming perfect sphere, as we see this example here. And as you see all the pieces flying off, none of them are perfect sphere, as they want us to believe that this Big Bang exploded and everything you see in the sky turned into perfect sphere, like they show here to us in these images. All this planet and moons, everything is so perfectly round. Earth. I'm yet to see an explosion that really causes this. If was the case, I would be inclined to believe Earth could be somewhat a piece of rock, like this one.
But not only that, it's slightly wider below the equator than above the equator.
A little chubbier.
A little chubbier.
Yeah.
Chubby's a good way. It's like pear-shaped.
Yeah.
Now, we've established that the Earth isn't flat, but it's not exactly round either, and nor is it a perfect sphere. In fact, we've been able to get a better idea of the Earth's true shape over time, and it turns out that it's bumpy and lumpy and rather oddly shaped, and there's this uneven distribution of mass on our planet.
Well, the Earth is not a perfect sphere. It's the fact that the Earth is squashed. The Earth is actually a little bit shorter in the pole-to-pole direction than it is if you took the diameter across the equator. It's squashed in this direction. This actually gives us what's called a semi-major and a semi-minor axis.
Is a sphere. So people have known that the Earth is spherical for thousands of years. We really need to put this question to bed because we've known the Earth is a sphere for a long time.
The problem is they have indoctrinated us for so long. Just look at these pictures for 12 years of our lives, from first grade until we graduate high school in 12th grade, we have been constantly brainwashed with the image of a perfect round ball, and year after year the same message has been sent to our brains. And by the time we finished high school, 12th grade, this is the only image that comes to our mind when someone talks about Earth. You immediately associate it with a ball, because this is what has been brainwashed into us from the time we started school. But not only that, sometimes even when you graduate high school, as in the case of these people here at Harvard University. This is a commencement ceremony at Harvard. You see there the graduates getting balls at the commencement ceremony, the globe Earth. So it's not enough spending 12 years from first grade until 12th grade learning about the ball Earth. You still gotta be indoctrinated for 4 more years in college. When you graduate, you get a ball, showing how brainwashed you are. This is how some people find it so hard to let it go of the ball Earth. Not because it makes sense, it's because they are used to it. Okay, I'm going to pick on one of these 4 models, the potato-shaped Earth. For those who don't know, these images were taken from a satellite sent to space by the European Space Agency at a cost of almost 400 million euros. These are the images they have sent, showing Earth to be of this shape, what they call potato shape. So let's look closely to these images as I'm trying to make my point. So here we have Frankfurt in this image right there. And as Earth turns, because according to the heliocentric model it has to spin, you will see that this area here on this model is flat, as I'm going to show this from another angle. Here we have Bogota in Colombia. Alright, so when I made my video and I wrote my book about emergency landings, Wolfie 6020 was telling me that I had drawn the route wrong going south of Paris. So considering that Earth is not really a round spherical, but it's a potato shaped like this one, because these images were sent to Earth in 2013 at a cost of almost 400 million euros. And this is what they describe the Earth. So this is the area going from South America to Europe, right there. You can see that's flattened, right? So it does make perfect sense if Earth was flat to fly. I mean, if Earth was this shape, potato shaped, to fly south of Paris going to Frankfurt. Now this is the route that Wolfie said it would make more sense. So I asked, he's a pilot, right? So how can he calculate this distance on Earth like this? This bump is at least 50 times higher than the highest mountain, like the Everest. How can he fly from Bogota to Frankfurt going that route, which he claims is the correct one, on Earth that is shaped like a potato? So my question to Wolfie and to the other pilots is this: do you get updates every time they send out those satellites and they come up with different shapes of Earth? Do you get like updates? Hey guys, we gotta get together now and recalculate our flight plans and do everything all over, because it turned out that Earth is not a sphere as we have been calculating all these years. It's totally different. It's potato shaped now. So we have to drop everything we have learned. Do they call you at the FAA? Do they send out briefings saying for all the pilots to relearn the routes and recalculate because the old ones no longer apply because Earth has just changed its shape. They have just found out that Earth is no longer a perfect sphere, it's now a potato shape. Do you all get those updates? Or are you like that astronaut who said that when he flew to the moon, when he went to the moon, he was not affected by the Van Allen belts because at the time when he went to the moon, they didn't know it existed. So ignorance kept him from getting sick of the radiation. So is ignorance making your flight paths not to go out of what you should go, miss your target, because you just don't know the Earth changed its shape?
Any ill effects from the Van Allen radiation belts?
No. Now, I'm not sure we went far enough out to encounter the Van Allen radiation belt. Maybe we did.
Beginning at an altitude of 1,000 miles and extending an additional 25,000 miles, lay lethal bands of radiation called the Van Allen radiation belts. Every space mission in history with humans on board, from both the United States and Soviet Union, from the first in 1961 to the present, has been well below this deadly radiation field. Mercury, Gemini, Soyuz, Skylab, the Space Shuttle, all maintained altitudes well below 1,000 miles. All except Apollo.
I don't know the distance to the Van Allen radiation belt. And if we did, it wasn't a problem. If we were going to encounter it, then we would have had to build the spacecraft and the spacesuit to not give humans a problem. You don't just build something and hope it works. You study to see what the threats are, the environment is, and then you say, how thick do I have to make the metal on the spacecraft so that going through this kind of radiation or these kind of meteoroids, it won't get hurt. And then we build it that way.
The belts are 1,000 miles to 25,000 miles above the Earth.
Then we went right out through them.
No effects on your cells?
We didn't even know it. I don't think anybody, well, maybe somebody said you went through the radiation belt, but we didn't feel it inside, and we didn't get any, added radiation. What powered the Earth? Batteries. You had a number of big batteries in the lunar module. They powered pumps, they powered the air conditioning, they powered the communication system, and that's the reason we were only able to stay on the moon 33 hours. Later on, we got a little better batteries, more batteries, and we could stay longer. But
now, guys, everything is calculated on a flat Earth map and converted to flat or to globe Earth data. Now, this is supposed to be funny, guys, but actually it's not. You see here, briefing, pilots get a briefing. There is another pilot here, captain, and there is a screen where he's showing something. And I have here NASA's Blue Marble. North America just increased its size by 40%. Your Miami Anchorage flight plan will now take you to Kansas only. So this is supposed to be funny. But take a look at this. We go to the Great Circle Map website and you type here name of city or airport code. Just type here Miami, MIA, and Anchorage, and gives us the Great Circle route between these two cities. So I'll go ahead and copy and save this image. And then we go to NASA website. Same thing here, we have a picture of Earth, which cost $8 billion. So I'll go ahead and save this picture and let's take a look at what happens right now. Here we go. We bring the image here to Photoshop, compare both Earths, the one from NASA, $8.1 billion image with the Great Circle Map. Same size. I have sized them to be the same size. So here's the Great Circle route from Anchorage to Miami. And look at what happens. When you compare them, if a pilot had planned to fly from Miami to Anchorage before NASA released the image, he would get to Anchorage. But after 2012, his flight plan would take him to Kansas only. So it seems like a joke, but it's not. Right here you clearly see North America changing size, so the flight plan no longer is valid. That's why we're saying that nothing is done on the globe. Everything is planned and executed on the flat Earth map. As I pointed out in the beginning when I did show a video demonstrating Uri Geller, and as he performed some tricks to deceive the people.
The subject was Uri Geller, a young Israeli who claimed to have supernatural powers. In the early 1970s, Geller became a superstar, the most famous psychic in the world. And then, of course, there was Mr. Geller's appearance on The Tonight Show. I got a call after they booked him to appear.
Would you welcome, please, Uri Geller.
Johnny had been a magician himself and was skeptical. I was asked to help prevent any trickery.
Nice to see you.
Thanks.
We have only met...
This scares me.
This scares you? Well, this is we just got some things together here. And
I told them to provide their own props and not to let Geller or his people anywhere near them.
Also, one of our staff members did some drawings which have been sealed in an envelope, and I'd like you to take your own pace when you feel like you want to try anything.
Right.
Do you want to try that particular experiment first?
When I'll feel for it.
When
Okay?
you Sure.
We'll start eliminating the ones that do not have the water.
All right, without touching them.
He is really suspicious, you know. I'm having a hard time with you.
Okay, I don't mean to be, Uri. I really don't.
Just keep looking. Okay, let me rest a little, all right?
All right.
You know, I'm surprised because before this program, your producer came and he read me at least 40 questions you're going to ask me.
Well, I can ask you all kinds of questions if you'd like. If you'd like me to ask you questions.
I have to have time, and
Zark, we are back. Uri was telling me you don't feel what, strong tonight?
I don't
Is that?
feel strong. It's not all tonight. Right now, I'm feeling being pressed, and then I can't.
Well, I'm not trying to press you. I really not.
No, you're only telling me, well, will you try that or that?
Well, I thought that was the idea of. No, I'm not trying to put you down.
When people sometimes ask me why I use Google Maps, well, Google is worth $1 trillion, and Google Maps alone is worth $22 billion. The thing about Google Maps is that sometimes they do treat the globe as a sphere. And when they do that, they demonstrate great circle routes where shouldn't exist on Earth because Earth is not a globe. So that's why some pilots tell me not to use Google Maps. Instead, they want me to use their cards, their props. It's much harder to catch a guy like Uri Geller if you let him use his own props. But when you present these people with other props that's not theirs, they panic like Uri Geller did on the show. So when I present some great circles on the globe based on Google Maps where there shouldn't be, a lot of those people panic. That's why I stick to it, because the people at Google, they look at that as a sphere, not as Earth. That's why they calculate the same distance. You can pay attention, like the flight time is still the same, whether the arc is arcing north or south, still the same, because they are dealing with a sphere. They are showing the formulas on a sphere. So guys, because Earth is not a globe, that's why all the planning are made on a flat, non-rotating Earth. As Pastor Dinodo pointed out, collecting several documents, government documents, as we will see here.
But this is a NASA technical manual. MIT, the Army Research Laboratory, flying over a flat, non-rotating Earth. Flat Earth with a flat Earth assumption. Non-rotating flat Earth. A flat, non-rotating Earth may be assumed. A flat and non-rotating, assuming a flat Earth. Flat, non-rotating Earth, a non-rotating Earth. Flat, non-rotating Earth. Validity of flat Earth based on a flat Earth assumption for a flat Earth and a flat atmosphere. Flat, non-rotating Earth. The flat Earth model. Propagation of electromagnetic fields over flat Earth. Ballistic vehicle motion. A closed-form solution is developed for the motion of a ballistic vehicle entering the atmosphere over a flat, non-rotating Earth. The assumption of these equations assume a flat Earth.
Now, we observe a flat horizon all the way up to 20, 30 miles up. And we can see that Earth does not move because, as we see in this example right here, when a train is moving, it leaves a trail of smoke behind, proving that it's the train that's moving. When we see volcanoes erupting, like this one that just erupted here in Japan on July 11th, 2020, and you see the smoke rising up, not being left behind like we just saw the train here. When the train goes by, you see the smoke being left behind. But Earth does not move. That's why the smoke goes straight up. But to fool you, just like Uri Geller, they don't want you paying attention on the fact. They want you to look at the formula. That's why Albert Einstein said that if the theory conflicts with the facts, change the fact. So they don't want you to look at the facts. They change the facts by showing us CGI images of space. Fisheye lenses demonstrate some sort of curvature even at the ground level. And to prove that the Earth is moving, they give you more formulas. They give you the relativity formula. So they don't want you looking out, paying attention. They want you to be brainwashed, looking at the school books, looking at formulas, not at evidences. So this brings me to mind a famous quote by Tesla. And he said, "Today's scientists have substituted mathematics for experiments, and they wander off through equation after equation and eventually build a structure which has no relation to reality." That's exactly what we see today. They have built a whole system that's not based on reality. It's based on theories only, and formulas, and math, but not on reality of what we see outside. I want to thank you everyone for watching this video. May the Lord keep you safe and bless your families in this difficult time that we're living now. Take care. See you next time. God bless you. Bye-bye.